Welcome back to Wisconsin Brewing Company Park for another DockHaus night here for the Lake Country DockHounds. This is DockHaus Dialogue with Dom. We have a very special guest. One of the original ideas for having DockHaus Dialogue with Dom on nights like this was to be able to share the stories of some of the baseball figures here in Lake Country, and there's maybe no more notable than Paul Wagner, the pitching coach for the Lake Country DockHounds, also a former major leaguer, including 2 seasons with the Milwaukee Brewers. Paul, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Yes, Paul is also on 97.3 The Game, so you were able to get his baseball analysis there, mostly talking about the major league level, but of course, you get to talk about the DockHounds there as well. How cool is it for you that people can tune into the radio and listen to your voice on a weekly basis?
It's really good. It's really nice. I like it. The fact that I can continue to love baseball at such a different age, at an older age, I should say, still be involved with the Milwaukee Brewers prior to the season starting for us here. And then when the DockHounds start, I go into DockHound mode, and we still talk, we still do previews, we still do pregame. And then the DockHound season over, and then I get into postseason with the Brewers. 97.3 has been really good to me. I've been with them about 13 years. The Milwaukee radio sports talk stations have been just super, super good to me, very lenient with all the shows. If you're familiar with 97.3 The Game, I'll do the weekly shows. I'll do the 9 to noon when John Kuhn was here. I do Zabin in the mornings. I'll do Drew and KB in the afternoon. So, yeah, it's really given me the opportunity to tell people that I don't know what I'm talking about, basically.
No, if you ever get to talk to Wags, you'll get to know that he's got a great personality, but also that you love to make jokes about yourself. And you had a long and prosperous major league career, but it actually started here because you are a local Wisconsinite. You grew up in Germantown and in Milwaukee. What was it like playing baseball in Wisconsin, because you were at the one time a big prospect out here?
You got to remember the times have changed so much. Wisconsin didn't have these facilities where these kids can work all the time. And back then, we were very limited. So growing up in Germantown, graduating, going to high school, back then, it wasn't so single sport dominated. It was, you played everything. You know, I played baseball. When baseball was done, I dropped the baseball glove and we played football. When football was done, we dropped the football helmets and then we picked up the basketball. We played all sports here, and, you know, I enjoyed it. I think that's part of a development of an athlete, regardless of the sport you play. But then living in Germantown, going to Brewer games, being a Brewer Pepsi fan club, something that you don't know about. We used to get colored tickets in the mail, and we'd get our lunch boxes. And, you know, I'd go to County Stadium and just cheer on the Brewers nonstop. And it was something that, you know, you grow up with it, listening to Bob Uecker, listening to the Brewers, the Robin Yountz and the Paul Mauters, and then being, you know, unfortunate enough to come around and all of a sudden be with them in the locker room together and joke with them on the field. It's just an incredible cycle to actually come back and play for the Milwaukee Brewers and now be with the Lake Country DockHounds.
Yeah, how cool is it for you, because you started your Major League Baseball career with the Pittsburgh Pirates, but then to stay local and come play for the team that you grew up going to games and listening to games for. How special was that for you?
It was huge. It was huge because back in those days, there was no interleague play or very limited interleague play. So the Pittsburgh Pirates played in the National League, and the only time my friends, my family could see me play was against the Braves on WTBS or go down to Wrigley and watch me on WGN. So it was good to come home, and then all of a sudden I get here. So my first year in Milwaukee, we were still an American League team. My second year in Milwaukee, we had just transferred over to the interleague play and became a National League team. So I was familiar with everything, but to come home and play in front of your friends and family, we talk about it so much. I had every opportunity just to continue to play here and be good. I just didn't perform well. I mean, there was no reason. It wasn't family pressure. It wasn't my health. It wasn't anything. It just didn't work out, and it's so sad in my point of view because it was laid out perfectly for me and I failed.
Yeah, you, like I said, Wags will like to diminish his major league career, but you got to play for 8 seasons in the bigs, but it started at Illinois State. You went there and were a 12th round draft pick to the Pittsburgh Pirates, and I think what's neat about your experience is you had a steady rise throughout the minor leagues. How are you able to have success to get yourself up to that major league level?
Yeah, that's a really good point because I did. I think I played about 2.5 years in the minor leagues, but I did make every stop. And the stops back in those days were crazy. I went down, I got drafted, I went down to spring training down in Bradenton, Sarasota, got evaluated by that staff. I went up to a place called Welland, Ontario. After Welland, Ontario, I went to Augusta, Georgia. After Augusta, Georgia, I went to Salem, Virginia. After Salem, Virginia, I went to Charlotte, North Carolina, or Zebulon, where the Carolina Mudcats are. After that, I went to Buffalo. I played in Buffalo, New York then, and then went to Pittsburgh. And so the journey was quicker than most, but it was stops at every level. Stops at every level.
And then you never looked back. And so now you're coaching a lot of guys here with the Lake Country DockHounds who don't have that path. Some of them, they don't even get into affiliated ball, and their first stop professionally is here. So how are you able to translate from maybe your minor league experience or your professional experience not at the major league level to some of the pitchers here?
That's the biggest thing I have to do is make sure that all these kids have talent. They all have talent, but where are they psychologically? They have to realize, and they do, they realize that they come to the Lake Country DockHounds, they've got a great facility, we've got great ownership, we've got great fans, but they know in the back of their mind, there's 30 teams that don't think they're any good. That's all minor leagues, that's all the big league teams. Nobody thinks they're any good anymore. So I've got to make sure they all have the physical ability. You got to find out where they are in their head. So I let them know that I've been released. They go, oh, you played for Pittsburgh, you played Cleveland, Atlanta, you played all these teams. I go, when you play for a lot of teams, that means you also get fired a lot of times. And you know what? I've been released. I've been DFA'd. I've done it all. So that's where I try to relate with them. Being released from organized baseball, from where these kids are coming from, is a punch in the throat. You know, they've been the best athlete in school. They've been the best baseball player in their college and their high school. And then they get drafted and they play in the minor leagues, and then all of a sudden, nobody wants them. It's a tough pill to swallow. So with these kids, I'm more worried about where they are mentally rather than physically.
100%. It's a steep fall from the mountain sometimes. And for you, you got up to the top of the mountain. You made your major league debut with the Pittsburgh Pirates. What do you remember about that time in 1992? Sorry.
I can tell you, no. I know it was a long time ago, but I can tell you this, that I played in front of 40,000, 50,000 fans. And the one thing that always stood out to me was, excuse me, I could hear my dad. No matter where we were, wherever he was sitting, I could hear my dad cheering for me. And that first game against the Atlanta Braves, my dad he really didn't like Deion Sanders. And Deion Sanders was the first batter I faced. And when I got Deion Sanders to pop up on the infield for my first major league out, I could hear my dad in the stands. I don't know exactly where he was, but I heard his voice because he was happy as hell.
Well, I made some Paul Wagner trivia, which we'll get to at the end of the show.
Oh, did I give one away?
One of the questions was going to be, who was the first batter you faced in your major league career? So that makes me wonder how effective some of my questions are going to be. But it was Deion Sanders, which, of course, is an iconic athlete in the United States. So very neat that you were able to face him as your first batter, but more importantly, you got him out. And then now you get to work with a bunch of younger pitchers. How are you able to spread your wisdom? You talked about the mentality, but also just being able to work with them and being able to help them get to where you once did.
So also, baseball is so diverse. We have so many different apples in this bushel. And I've talked to pitchers that have had maybe hard to understand a coach with a Latin descent, accent from here and there. So it's really hard when you get into the minor league system to actually have one coach hone in on you. It's tough. So what we try to do here is with Stevie, with our bullpen, with Huck, and with even Pano talking, and even the coaches in past, we try to get to see every pitcher throw. Nobody throws the same. That's one of the things that I learned growing up through the systems. I played in different organizations. I've seen everybody throw from different arm angles, different things. So if you think you can open up a book and say, you need to throw like this, you're wrong. You're wrong. So what we do here is we look at every single person, regardless of size, shape, left-handed, right-handed, it doesn't matter, but I look and see where they throw. And when I see how they throw, then we try to hone in on how we can make that style of pitching beneficial to you. You can't take a 25-year-old kid who's been released, drafted, played maybe some of them in the big leagues, some of it. You can't reinvent their pitching motion. You can't tell them to do something because they don't have the time to do that. Their goal is to come to Lake Country, play here as fast, as quick as they can, and get the hell out of here. They don't want to play for the DockHounds. They don't want their jersey hanging up there and say, I played 5 years for the Lake Country DockHounds. That's not the goal. The goal is to get back to affiliated ball, and that's where Tom Kelnick, the coaching staff, everybody works to get these players out of here as quick as possible.
And you had to build it from the ground up because you were a part of the inaugural team here in the Lake Country DockHounds in 2022, and you had to build the team from scratch. It's indie ball, so it's not like affiliate ball where the team is built for you by the major league team. How were you able to work with Tom Kelnick and then Jim Bennett, the manager at the time, to build a pitching staff that, I mean, ultimately didn't have as much success as you would have liked, but how were you able to put it all together?
It was a tough road, and I guarantee you Tom's had many sleepless nights. As we put together talent at different levels, you build a reputation and you actually can attract people. Our conversations are with agents, with organizations. We have organizations, we have a couple local scouts. I have a real good one with the Houston Astros, who, matter of fact, signed Brody Rodning. But he'll come up and he'll tell us, hey, I got a guy here that I really want you to work with. We just released him because of factor A, factor B, factor C. Can you work on this? Yes, bring him here. We have to dig deep, but we're starting to get overwhelmed. We're getting the opportunity to get a lot of talent, and it's nice. It really is, because in day one we were taking kids that were just leaving Carroll College, or we had to take local kids. It was a tough a hill to sled down, because you were going against guys that were being released from AAA, and we just couldn't compete.
Yeah, what was the biggest challenge in doing that and building that roster to be able to compete? Because like we said, in year one it didn't work, but year 2 and 3 you guys have been able to make some adjustments.
I think the biggest thing was getting people to believe in staying within themselves. It's hard. You can't, at this level, you can't say, we're a team. This is what it's all about. There's no I in team, because every individual is here to get out of here. It's hard. We want to win, or they want to win as a team, but for us as coaches, this is it. But they want to do it, so we have to make sure that they believe in things that we say to help them. Again, it goes to that psychological part. Are you trying to tell me stuff so I can succeed in Lake Country, or are you trying to tell me to succeed as I move on to an organization? And that's what I do. I make sure that they know that I am truly in their corner. I believe in them. If you do this, this, and this, you throw strikes, as simple as it is. You don't walk guys. You avoid runners. You do the things that we've learned your whole life, but you've kind of gotten away from it because you were just punched in the throat saying, you're released, no Major League Baseball team wants you anymore. And you're like, what am I doing? I still want to play baseball. Now you have to refocus, regroup, go back to the basics, and then reestablish yourself.
And the DockHounds have been able to push 6 pitchers upward level. Doesn't mean they went to the major leagues. We've had a couple who have gone to another level and then have gone to the major leagues after that. But 6 pitchers: Nick Harold, Randall Delgado, Kyle McGowan, Austin Davis, John Duplantier, and Brody Rodning are the 6.
Oh, and you forgot Duncan Snyder.
Yes, Duncan Snyder, of course. He then came back to the Lake Country DockHounds this past year. So that's 7. How much pride do you take in the fact that the DockHounds have been able to do that in only 3 years' time?
I think it's really incredible. It really is. Working with the kids, and like I said, getting into their minds and letting them believe and getting the opportunity to play at a different level with an organization. 7 guys in 3 years from an independent ball that just started 3 years ago. I think that's great. I think that's kudos, obviously, to upper management, for Tom and coaching staff and gathering players. I mean, we're all in it together. We all go after, we all make phone calls and getting players, but it's targeting the right ones, first as personalities, then as talents, and then seeing what we can do and working with them. So it's great being a part of, also the talent acquisition part of it, if you can say that. And I appreciate that. I like reaching out to players that I used to play with, coaches, agents, people that I've known through my years of baseball, and getting individuals, and not necessarily just pitchers, sometimes position players as well.
And I think what's neat about those 7 players that we just talked about is there are 3 different paths that they took to get to Lake Country. Brody Rodning, he was in affiliate ball. He never got to the major league level. was released due to an arm injury. He comes back here, was a force for us out of the bullpen. He's then able to go to the Houston Astros. He's still there, has been pitching a couple of times in spring training. A handful of those guys we mentioned actually made it to the major league level. Things maybe didn't go well for them there. Some injuries as well factor into that. They end up here in Lake Country, but then Nick Harold and Duncan Snyder, they don't get that affiliate ball opportunity. They still get to play professionally for the Lake Country DockHounds, and then they get that first crack in affiliate ball. So how different is it for you working with these guys that have different professional experiences and then meshing them all together in the same pitching staff, but also catering to their different needs?
That's what I do. I make sure that they don't realize where they were. They all know it. You can look at the back of Baseball Reference, the back of their baseball card if they have one. All 12, 13, 14 of those guys, they all know exactly where they've been and what they've done. But for that split moment of 100 games in a summer, they play as a team, and they don't, doesn't matter if you were at AAA. We had a guy last year, Blake Kuntz. We had Blake. Blake never played. He got here and he had to experience. Mitch, you forgot Mitch Miller. We have another guy, so now we have 8 guys. I forgot. We just lost Mitch Miller. So we've had 8 guys in 3 years leave. I mean, and Mitch Miller never did it. And I worked with Mitch as a 12-year-old. Man, he's a Brookfield Central kid. I worked with him at a facility since he was this big. And then he goes out and he plays at Utah Valley, I believe, or Southern Utah.
Utah Valley.
Comes back here, and then now he gets the opportunity to go play for the Minnesota Twins minor league system. He's down in Fort Myers. He's going to get assigned. So, again, as we keep going over these numbers, you have to try to make sure that these players don't look, hey, I'm in AAA or AA or single A. We're all together. We're in this pot together. And you see that from a lot of experienced players, the John Duplantiers, those guys helping. And we had a guy named Handheld last year, another veteran who worked with the younger players. So we worked, all the pitchers, the pitching staff, we all work together as a whole in helping everybody.
And there's a lot of adjustments that come to that, because when these guys leave, of course, it's great for them and great for the team. It's a good look, but then all of a sudden, the team on the field, we have to go out there and win, and guys have to patch up these holes. There's a lot of adjustments. What have you learned the most from when you stepped in that dugout the first time in 2022? Now looking back on it 3 years later, about being an MLB Partner League pitching coach?
Wow. I think the biggest thing is that psychological, that mental approach. I didn't realize it. When you first come in, we've all played, and then all of a sudden I got players that didn't get drafted or only played at a Division III school, which is, nothing, but it's just different levels. And I didn't realize like maybe the realm or the fish bowl that we actually had here, that it was so drastic. And then when I realized that we just got to come down to basics. This park, we know when the wind blows, there's a lot of home runs here. We can't walk hitters, and it doesn't matter. I talked to Jeremy Accardo, who's a AAA pitching coach in Nashville. He was a closer with the Arizona Diamondbacks. I know him. I talked to Mike Fetters, who's also with the Diamondbacks, and I said, well, what do you do when you have a guy with a great arm and can't throw strikes? And he says, we release them. We don't have time to teach it. So these kids have to realize they have to come here and throw strikes. That's from year 1 to year 3 is the biggest thing. You have to challenge hitters. You have to throw strikes, and you can't walk guys. And it's a hard thing because it's tough, but they're afraid to get hit. You cannot be afraid to give up a hit. You have 7 guys behind you with gloves that are going to catch the ball. Throw pitches, make quality pitches. Don't be afraid to challenge people, and that's the mentality approach that we have to have.
That was 100% the biggest difference for the DockHounds in 2024. First half, the team was walking a fair amount of hitters. Second half, and thanks in part because some new players came in, and then also some players that you had been working with were able to settle into their roles and started to throw more strikes. But the ERA for the team the first 3 years has gone down drastically each season. 6.56 in year 1. Obviously, that's not good if you know anything about baseball. 5.47 in terms of the American Association. That's not horrible, but obviously there's room to improve. Last year, even with that tough start, a 4.85 ERA. How were you and Ken Huckabee and Tom Kelenic able to get the pitching staff to turn it around not only this past season, but mid-season too?
To get that bulldog mentality. And I know it's hard to say. You never want to call somebody out and say that they're scared. I mean, you don't do that. But I had to. Pitch efficiency was so important, and we stressed it. We stretched it with our group of guys, with AJ and Jack and Stevie and everybody that works together, putting together our game plans. The biggest thing is, regardless of how you put it together, you can't walk. You can't walk guys in a big league. I was just talking to Chris Hook and down in Arizona, and Chris is the same thing. It doesn't matter what level you're at. Chris says we can't walk guys. If we're in Miller Park is a bandbox. I mean, next to Cincinnati. Him and Murph are both saying, we can't walk people. We have to challenge them. That's the biggest thing. Strikeouts will come. In this day and age, guys are trying to hit home runs, so you get a lot of strikeouts. But you can't walk players because you can't get hurt. And that whole change with all of our information and stuff kind of got through to them. And they understand it. That second half of the season, they realized how good we were offensively, and that they knew that they had to pitch. Because if we gave our guys a chance to score runs, we were going to win games.
Was there a moment last year where you kind of saw it coming together and said, all right, this pitching staff, they're going to turn the corner. It's going to happen. This team's going to make the Miles Wolf Cup playoffs, or did it just happen gradually?
It really did. I know maybe this isn't the answer you're looking for. It happened gradually. I didn't realize that. What did we finish the year? 23-9. 23-9. Don't get me wrong. I knew we were winning more games than we were losing. But the mentality and the focus as it shifted, I don't know the exact point, but our pitching staff took off. We did good. You just went with it day to day, and we were winning games, winning more than we were losing. I couldn't have told you we were 23-9 and made that push. And I mean, we had the last 5 games of the season to try to clinch the playoffs. You get a little nervous, but to be in that situation was just incredible. There wasn't one turning point because it's such a grind for 100 games. We just started playing. Things just started working.
No, totally fair. And for you, you've now got to experience 3 seasons of DockHounds baseball. Take the coaching side out of it. What's your favorite part about DockHounds games here at Wisconsin Brewing Company Park?
Oh, because I'm from Wisconsin, so it's a little different. I love seeing the people. I love interacting with the fans. I love the Section 101. I love talking to them when we come out. Although the sun, and people will complain about that sun at that twilight time, I think it's so important that our players walk around and come through that, and they get to shake hands and stuff. If they were over there, I know they still have to come, but I think it's nice. I think our bullpen being right here, I just think knowing the fans and seeing the people, it's so special because I grew up in Wisconsin. And knowing what baseball is about, we have the Brewers down the road. We can go watch the Brewers. We've become spoiled. We've become spoiled in Wisconsin. We have great sports. We have 2 teams going to the NCAAs. We got Marquette in Wisconsin. We got Marquette basketball. We got Wisconsin football. We got basketball. We have the Milwaukee Brewers that go to the playoffs all the time. We have the Green Bay Packers that have had 3 quarterbacks in a generation, and we go to playoffs. The Milwaukee Bucks that you can, maybe LeBron, but you can say Giannis is a top 5 player of all time. We've been very, very fortunate, the Milwaukee Brewers, with the Robin Younts and the Paul Molitor's, Giannis, Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre, Jordan Love. We're very spoiled in Wisconsin, and we don't appreciate it as much as I think we should. If we step back and look at these other cities who get pounded all the time, and we are fortunate. And now we bring baseball here, though I don't like the Milwaukee Milkmen. Down in Franklin, the Rock, Zimmerman put together a great facility there. Now we have a formidable, rivalry. Yeah, that's
I'll say it.
But it's the Milwaukee Milkmen, and I dreaded Milwaukee Milkmen. But again, like baseball and things, it switches rosters, so it isn't the same people, but we still dread them. But it's such a great thing. There's South Milwaukee, now there's the Lake Country area, that little trip. I mean, that is that rivalry, like you said. Sports in Wisconsin is just blooming.
And, they think about all the legends. Unfortunately, they don't think about you as a legend, but they appreciate your figure here in Lake Country.
My.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had someone complain on the radio, like, we found the 2 listeners that actually listen to me talk, because they both complained about something.
Yeah, but, it is what it is, and, it's a great experience out here in Wisconsin, and we're very happy that the Lake Country DockHounds get to be a part of it. And now, Paul, I will have some trivia questions for you. Of course, you already answered what was going to be the first one in talking about Deion Sanders as the first batter you faced. Later that inning, you got your first strikeout in the bigs. Do you remember who it was against, or who you struck out?
I do.
Who was it?
He was the MVP the year before.
He was, and he finished finished runner-up for MVP this year too.
Tyler Pendleton.
Terry Pendleton.
Terry Pendleton.
I'll give that to you.
Terry Pendleton.
And then, of course, you pitched in the National League your entire career, with the exception of that first season with the Brewers because they were still in the American League. So you actually got to hit when you were with the Pirates and also with the Brewers a little bit. How many Major League hits did you get?
30. No, 25. 30. 25.
It's 28.
28.
28 MLB hits. It's
no
28.
homers. No homers. I know no homers.
2 doubles, though.
2 doubles.
2 doubles.
Do you know who the doubles were off of?
I did not find that out.
One was Tom Glavine, and the other one was Kurt Schilling.
Well, do you remember? Really?
Yes.
Do you remember who your first hit was against?
Yes. Cubs.
It was?
Frank. Mm-hmm. Frank Castillo.
This guy's good. Do you remember?
No, that's because I went to Illinois State. So I went to Illinois State, and when I left there, all my buddies were all Chicago guys. And when you first get to Wrigley for your first time in the big leagues, and you have about 30 college guys that drinking Fireball since 7 in the morning.
What's that?
And they come stumbling down to that bullpen at Wrigley. It was a mess. But yes, I do remember a lot of my games at Wrigley, not many of those post games.
And so you like to joke about your career, so I figured I would throw in a kind of joke question. Of course, Mark McGwire hit a very long home run off of you, but who hit the final home run off you in your MLB career?
Where was I?
You were with Milwaukee when this happened. You did not allow a home run as the member of the Cleveland Indians.
Fernando Tatis. No, the other guy, Vlad Guerrero.
It was Vladimir Guerrero. And then there was a Hall of Famer that was taken 1 round later than you in the 1989 draft. You were taken in the 12th round. This player was taken in the 13th round. Who was it?
I think I played against him many, many times. Jim Thome.
You also played with Jim Thome.
I did play with Jim Thome, and he went to like Eastern or Western Illinois.
Yeah, what was it like playing on that team in Cleveland? Obviously, you weren't there for a long time, just that one season, but that roster was absolutely loaded.
So here's a funny one. Yes, I know where I stand. So my dad comes down and he gets into Cleveland, and they're busy. They're going to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They're on the lakefront. They're staying there. They're looking at this Brown Stadium. They're walking on that whole wharf area, down in the warehouses, and they come in and the game starts, and then, or at that time the scoreboard shows. So if you know players, you had Sandy Alomar Jr. catching. I had Jim Thome at first, Roberto Alomar at second, Omar Vizquel at shortstop, Travis Fryman at third base, Manny Ramirez in right, Kenny Lofton in center, and David Justice in left. And then on the scoreboard in the middle it says Wagner. So they go, out of these 9 guys, which one doesn't fit? So we kind of figured that one out pretty quick.
It is Paul Wagner. But, hey, I mean, like I said, you had a 9-year MLB career. You have positive WAR. I made sure to mention that on the bus a couple of times when there's some shots being thrown at you and other members on that bus, which included me. But, it's a very accomplished career. Do you oftentimes look back on your MLB career, and I know you joke about it, but think about how successful it actually was and the fact that you were able to have such a long and prosperous career?
I think that old saying where the losses hurt more than the wins, I look back at the games that, like, if I would have done better, and I mentioned that with Milwaukee. And, I mean, again, I'm not making excuses. I just didn't perform well for one reason or another. I made a bad pitch. They hit a home run, whatever. I did. But there were so many. You look at these opportunities where I think I could have established myself as a good player. I think I could have, if I would have, continued that 3-game spurt, or I could have made one more pitch in that one game we talk about, or I could have, continued after I did get that opening day start. If I could have continued a little bit longer, if I could have had success, not get hurt, you wonder where, I could have been good. I think that's the biggest thing I look back at, and it's I guess I can relate it to buying a lottery ticket, and you have all the numbers right, but that Powerball is 42 and I had 41. And it's like, I had the chance. You know, everybody goes, "Oh, I wish I had." I did. I just didn't grab. I just didn't succeed. I failed, and that's the hardest part because I got there. So many players bust their ass to try to get there and establish themselves. I got there, and once I got there, I just couldn't grab that bull by the horns and establish myself of what I really wanted to be. So I think you look at your losses, you look at your so-called quote-unquote failures more than you look at your successes. I can't even tell you. I think I lost 40-some games in the big leagues. I think I only won
41.
Huh?
19 and 41.
No, more than 19 games.
Maybe it's 29.
Come on.
29 and 45.
Okay.
Sorry.
19? I was going to say, come on. Then I really stole money for 9 years. But no, you look at those rather than the wins, then the losses are just hard. It's just, and that's just what it is. That's just what it is.
3 saves, but you also made 84 starts. So I think that's a very impressive and telling stat was that you were trusted 84 times to take the ball.
So I played for some good managers. I played for Jimmy Leland, who I believe is one of the best Hall of Fame managers. I played for Phil Garner in Milwaukee. I played for Mike Hargrove in Cleveland. When I was in New York, before we left for Japan, that's when I got hurt, so I stayed back, but that was Bobby Valentine. And then Atlanta, when I was there traveling with the team, it was Bobby Cox. So I played for some great, great managers and have some great, great opportunities. But being in the National League, I think the way I was able to fool them is, and I do tell this to my kids, you know what, I never made an error. And if you can field your position, you can stay in. Back then, pitchers hit. So if I would have been I couldn't hit or I couldn't field my position, you're coming out with the game in line. Me being able to field my positioning, lay down a bunt, and swing the bat kept me in games a little bit longer. So that's probably my biggest, when I look back at it, that's my biggest accomplishment, I think, is no errors. I mean, that's maybe not 200 chances, but less than 200 chances, but no errors. I mean, that's a good one.
It just takes one chance to make that error. So
yeah.
Especially you're thinking about making that first pitch, getting that first strikeout, but you're not thinking about that first hard hit ground ball back at you.
Right.
So the fact that you weren't able to make any errors is impressive. Got DockHounds trivia for you. We got 3 questions. We'll see if you'll be able to handle this. Alex McRae threw the first pitch here at Wisconsin Brewing Company Park. Who threw the first ever DockHounds pitch? So DockHounds opened 2022 on the road.
Oh, the big lefty. Krasinski.
Evan Krasinski. All right. He's been perfect so far. Who was the most single-season appearances for the DockHounds? This is pitching-wise.
What year?
This is last year, so 2023.
Oh, I'm not going to get this. Mullenbach.
It is not Matt Mullenbach. He was one behind Brady Keiss.
Oh, shoot.
And then Mullenbach led the team this past year. He's the all-time leader in DockHounds appearances, and you'll be able to see Matt Mullenbach pitch for the DockHounds this season when it kicks off in May. Very excited for that. Who was the most innings pitched in a DockHounds season?
Last year?
Just in a DockHounds season.
Bunnell?
It's not Bunnell, because remember, he missed some games due to his injury.
That's right. Not McRae. Not Krasinski. Let's go Nick Harold.
No, it is Brett Canine.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Brett was the bulldog for the DockHounds this season.
And that's all time?
That's one season.
Oh, one season. Okay.
So it's Brett Canine. Well, Wags, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Is there anything you want to leave our fans with? We do a Fan Fest in the first week of May. That'll be the next time they'll be able to see you here at Wisconsin Brewing Company Park. The season's fast approaching.
I'm looking forward to it. I've been able to talk to a lot of the guys. I usually just talk to the pitchers, so I will call them, kind of see where they are. The Mullenbach experiment is I had to get him between Amazon. He's driving Amazon truck, so I had to get him between a delivery. But talking to all the guys, we've got to be excited about this. We're going to build off of what we did last year. I think the team that has been constructed, or at least the pieces that have been put in place for Huck and us to decide on who makes a team, are incredible. I think the only fear is that we have good players, so come soon, because I think as time goes on, the Lake Country DockHounds will continue to push players, both position and pitchers, to affiliated baseball. And I think those opportunities will come quicker than later for these kids. So I would advise, come soon. We're going to win. We're going to try to jump up. But you had mentioned something earlier about a player leaving. There's actually a situation where we could have a starting pitcher scheduled to start tomorrow. Tom could get a phone call tonight, and he doesn't pitch tomorrow, and we don't have a slot. So we got to figure something out. You have to deal with that, you know?
I brought my glove to Winnipeg this past year when we were ravaged with injuries, and then a couple of pitchers also couldn't travel. It wasn't going to happen, but, I mean, if the team ever needs someone to step up, I can throw 60 miles an hour for a strike. We'll see how that fares to these professionals, but I'll get the fastball over the plate.
Again, I think it'll be just great baseball. As we roll into year 4, you will be able to see a lot better baseball. And that's not knocking anything the players, the coaches we had in year 1. It's a group. It's a group of people that are working hard together now with the same goals. And again, these are kids. These are kids. You can't forget that the kids that we see out here have been punched in the throat. And I use that comment a lot. They've been released. There's nobody wants them, and they have to come out here and play. It's so hard to tell a kid, man, again, Mully driving an Amazon truck, I'm not saying that in any derogatory fashion, but you come here, and if you don't play good here, independent baseball is your last step. Now you're going to have to fall back on your college education if you have one, or your working experience that you did in the off season. These kids, this is last resort. Nobody wanted them, and that's why we try to stay so positive, try to keep it. I would never want to deprive a kid from playing baseball. And you can see talent levels. Obviously, we can. You can see it in the stands, and you can see it. But you don't want them to lose that love for the game. And this is the last hope. This is the last hope. I'm not saying they're not going to like baseball, but they realize that if they can't play here, they're going home. They're going home, and they all realize that. Brian Bonnell, a great pitcher for us last year, got up to AAA with the Washington Nationals. He realized it. He didn't pitch good enough here, or he pitched good for us. He didn't pitch good enough to get re-signed. He understood. He's seen it. He knows what he has to do. He couldn't do it. Whether it was for reason A, B, or C, he understood it, and now he's retired. Alex McRae, another pitcher who was in the big leagues with both Pittsburgh and the Chicago White Sox. He got released. We love Alex. Alex came here. He tried to do stuff. Health hurt him a little bit, but he couldn't accomplish A, B, and C. And he realized that life is next. And that's the hardest thing. So when you watch these guys play, realize that they're playing for their baseball lives. You know, I'm not saying life. I know that's very drastic too, but they're playing for their baseball life. This is what it is. You know, this is it. This is their last resort.
Yeah, they're chasing their dreams through Lake Country and by playing for the DockHounds in front of our great fans. And there are players who are up here during the day taking classes so they can finish their school while they are playing professionally, because they either got drafted and didn't go to college, or they got drafted after their junior year and they didn't get their degree, and now all of a sudden they've got to figure it out once they realize that, hey, getting to the major leagues is going to be a longer shot than I realized.
That's a very good point, and I think that's something that I think we should stress that more, because I don't think people understand that. These kids come up here before the game. They do their workouts, and they do their online studies. They're trying to complete their degrees. They're doing things that are very, very beneficial for them down the road at some time if they do not get to the big leagues. And I don't think we've mentioned that ever until right now, and maybe you have. I don't really think I've ever mentioned it, but I'll come up here after batting practice. If we're at home, our batting practice then gives us about an hour and a half before game time, plus or minus. We have a pitchers meeting prior to the series start. The hitters will go over some of the pitchers, but that hour and a half time, a lot of these players use it very beneficial to themselves, and they do online courses and they study, and that's something that I think that's very, very positive.
It's truly remarkable what these players are doing to come out here and still chase their dreams while also preparing themselves for the eventual, I don't want to say afterlife, but post-playing career that they have to go through. And like we said, not everyone's able to get to the major leagues and have a 9-year MLB career. These guys, they're just trying to chase it even if they get up for that one day so they can maybe face Deion Sanders as their first batter and maybe get him to pop out.
Yeah. I mean, it really, I've been able to tell them all, I've been through it all with surgeries and being released and DFA'd and getting cut and coming back and battling for a position. It's worth it. And that's what I want them to know. Like you said, one day in the big leagues, just to get to the big leagues is an incredible feat. And I just wish I could give every single one of our pitchers that opportunity, whether they take advantage of it or they drop the ball like I did. But I want them all to be able to experience it because it's something you can't explain. And so many people will be like, what's it like to walk out of the dugout at Wrigley Field? I can't tell you. How does it feel like to walk through the tunnel at Lambeau with every single person? I mean, you can't explain it. It's just a feeling that gets to you, and to be in front of a major league crowd and be in the big leagues is something I wish they could all experience.
Thank you. Paul Wagner, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And then just a couple of programming notes. Andy Brzakala, sorry, I've mispronounced his name so many times. Andy Brzakala will be our guest next week. If you are interested in filling out a bracket for our free DockHounds pool, we have over 300 entrants. It's completely free. There will be winners after each round in this pool. They're DockHounds related prizes. If you need the link from me, I can give it to you. It's also just our DockHounds pool. We also have in the back our other ticket reps. They're discussing group season tickets with anyone who is potentially interested in expanding what they do with the Lake Country DockHounds. And then we will also be hosting a party here on Saturday for anyone who wants to come and watch March Madness. $5 Coors Light, walk-off lager, and then buy one, get one free pizzas. We will make sure that we have the 3 games on corresponding to when they are on Saturday afternoon for March Madness. No, it's one of the most exciting times of the year as we gear up for the baseball season. We got to settle for basketball. Once again, thank you so much for coming out. We've got trivia with Skipper Dave in just a couple of minutes.